Hello, everyone. Matt here again. If you want to jump straight into the story, you will see the timestamp in the first comment below. If you're not aware, I'm just doing these quick introductions to show YouTube there is a human face behind this channel. Before we begin, End Times Ambience is now on Rumble and Spotify as well as Patreon. The links to those will be in the comments below. Now, this particular video is a remastered version of one of the first videos I ever produced. I believe it was the fifth video I did back when I was still learning the ropes. I'm still very much learning the ropes, but this was really early on in the End Times Ambience journey. So this story covers the tense moments leading up to a global nuclear strike and the aftermath of the strike. I really loved the concept, but when I went back and revisited the video, the dialogue, the pacing didn't quite hit the mark. Also, I don't think I properly set up the end. So I gave the whole script a complete top to bottom rewrite, complete remaster, while keeping the core plot intact. And if you're a long-time listener of this channel, I've also added and interwoven themes from some of my other videos into this version. So one quick heads up, you might notice some overly robotic dialogue and some audio glitches throughout. While those might sound like errors, I assure you they are intentional, and I'll just leave it at that for now. With that being said, enjoy the show. My name is Ryan Willis. What you're about to hear are fragments, broadcasts, recordings, things people said when they still thought someone was listening. I pulled these from wrecked equipment, broken transmissions, a couple of flash drives I found in a car that wasn't going anywhere anymore. Some of the voices, they're gone now, but the recordings survived, and I figured someone should hear them. I'm at my cabin outside the city. This is how it started. A weather report on a Tuesday morning.
Good morning. I'm Marion Crane with Channel 7 News. Our chief meteorologist, Annie Hayworth, has been here since 3 a.m., tracking what she's calling a strange weather pattern along the coast. Annie, go ahead.
Thanks, Marion. So our weather models are completely scrambled this morning, and I don't have a good answer for why. Heavy electromagnetic interference along the entire coast has knocked out 2 of our 3 Doppler stations since about 4 a.m. The National Weather Service is blaming solar activity. Our IT department thinks that's nonsense, but nobody's giving me a better explanation, so we're working with what we've got. Flights on Pacific routes keep dropping off the tracking boards for minutes at a time, and before sunrise, 3 commercial pilots reported light formations over open water that the FAA can't explain yet. Separate issue, but all morning long, the barometric pressure has been way off from what the temperature should be producing, and I honestly have no explanation for that either.
Thanks, Annie. We'll keep watching the radar. In other news, residents along the coast are reporting heavy overnight helicopter traffic, tied to what federal officials call routine military readiness drills. And we contacted nearby installations for comment with no response as of airtime. Overseas, Russia's foreign minister, who arrived in Tehran late last night, is pushing for another round of talks on the 2-year conflict with Iran, though Western diplomats say the process hasn't moved in weeks. On Capitol Hill, hearings pick back up today on Wormwood, the AI model that its developer told a Senate panel last month is too dangerous for public release, and the Pentagon still won't confirm whether the military already has access. We'll be right back with traffic and your morning commute.
That broadcast, a Tuesday morning in September, came off a cracked hard drive we pulled from the Channel 7 wreckage. Nobody there survived, but the recording did. On that drive you can hear it. Annie's confusion over the pressure readings, the way Marion's voice tightens when she mentions the drills. The interference wasn't coming from space. Three days since the morning broadcast. I'm at my cabin outside the city and I can't explain why I'm here. Something in my gut said pack more supplies than usual. Fill the extra water containers. Check the generator twice. Maybe it was Matthew's voice when he couldn't explain those readings. Maybe it was the way Marion got a little tighter when she mentioned the military exercises. From the deck I can see the city below. All those lights. All those people doing their Tuesday things. The radio chatter I've been picking up tells a different story than what's making the evening news. Truck convoys moving at night with their headlights off. Cargo planes landing at airports that don't handle military traffic. And this morning, complete communication blackouts across 3 separate time zones. The strangest thing, though, the birds stopped singing yesterday. Just stopped.
Good evening. I'm Marion Crane with Channel 7 News at 6. Tonight we're tracking several developing stories that have local officials working without answers. We begin with the rolling blackouts affecting major cities from coast to coast. Federal authorities claim this is infrastructure maintenance, but outages lasting 2 to 6 hours have knocked out traffic signals and hospital backup power. Utility companies say their grids are running normally. We've also received reports of strange seismic activity, not earthquakes. Residents describe a deep rumbling that fails to register on standard monitoring equipment. The United States Geological Survey released a statement this afternoon calling these reports unsubstantiated. They have, however, dispatched monitoring teams to several locations. We go now live to Matthew Garth at the Regional Emergency Management Office. Matthew, what are you seeing?
Marion, I'm outside the Regional Emergency Management Office. The activity here hasn't stopped for 18 hours. What started as storm preparation has escalated into a massive logistical operation. Officials refuse to explain the shift. Behind me, crews are loading heavy generators onto flatbed trucks. They're moving communications equipment that rarely sees daylight outside of a localized catastrophe. I spoke with Emergency Coordinator Stella Thorwald about 20 minutes ago. She called the movement precautionary, but her staff is pulling 12-hour shifts. We've confirmed similar mobilizations in at least 12 other states. When I asked Director Thorwald about coordination with federal agencies, she ended the interview and walked away. The parking lot behind me is completely full. These vehicles carry plates from states hundreds of miles away. Back to you, Marion.
Thanks, Matthew. We've watched the feeds all day, and this pattern extends well beyond our region. People in major cities are posting video of convoy movements and low-altitude aircraft formations. Several witnesses reported the testing of air raid sirens in communities that haven't used them since the Cold War. Several major internet providers went down this afternoon, just long enough to freeze the financial markets before service returned. Our congressional representatives claim they are monitoring the situation. They refuse to share details, citing security concerns. Joining us now is Dr. Peggy Stephenson. Dr. Stephenson, your team tracks electromagnetic interference.
Marion, the interference Matthew reported earlier this week is escalating. It's getting stronger. It's getting highly focused. My instruments are picking up frequency signatures that absolutely do not match any natural source. The timing aligns perfectly with the rolling infrastructure disruptions. Atmospheric radiation levels spiked 15% over the past 72 hours. We are still within safety margins, but the rate of increase and the geographic distribution look engineered. I've reached out to colleagues at other monitoring stations. The few willing to share data are seeing the exact same spike. What bothers me most is the deliberate jamming of specific communication frequencies. Someone is blocking the channels used by emergency services and scientific networks. That kind of capability requires state-level resources.
Thank you, Dr. Stephenson. We'll keep monitoring these developments through the night. Tomorrow morning, we'll be joined by former Pentagon analyst Dr. Rebecca Hayes. She will discuss the implications of these global military exercises. For Channel 7 News, I'm Marion Crane. We'll return with updates as they break. Please ensure your emergency supplies are stocked and your devices are charged. Officials call this precautionary. We'll stay on the air to verify that.
That was the last normal newscast Marion ever delivered. Dr. Hayes never made it to the studio the next morning. The communication networks went dark before sunrise, permanently. Those emergency supplies Marion mentioned. Most folks completely ignored her. They assumed it was standard television hype. From my cabin that night, I watched the city lights flicker. They pulsed in patterns that felt calculated.
All right, we are back. I'm your host, Fred Derry, and you are listening to The Situation Room. If you are tuning in right now, you already know today is far from a normal Tuesday. Since 4 a.m., My producer has been documenting these rolling cellular blackouts cascading across the eastern seaboard. The traffic management systems on Interstate 95 have completely reset. They are artificially manipulating the light cycles. The highway is a parking lot from Boston all the way down to DC, and there is a static bleeding into every AM and FM frequency on the dial. It is a low, rhythmic pulse. The phone lines are entirely jammed at the studio. We are only getting emails through an old secure server my IT guy set up last year. People are reporting armored convoys moving through quiet suburban neighborhoods. Major hospitals are suddenly shifting to emergency backup generators even though the municipal grid is still hot. The Pentagon keeps issuing these sterile press releases repeating the words readiness drills, like keep pointing to the 2-year conflict in Iran as the justification for all this sudden domestic security. Joining me now is Colonel Thomas Whitmore, retired Air Force intelligence, 30 years in logistics and global threat assessment. Thomas, thanks for jumping on short notice.
Thanks for having me, Fred. I'll get right to it. When the official story is this synchronized across multiple federal agencies, you have to look at the motive. When FEMA and the Department of Defense start using the exact same phrasing about readiness drills on the exact same morning, that's panic control.
So you think the Iran situation finally boiled over? We heard on the morning broadcast that the Russian foreign minister landed in Tehran last night. Are we looking at a coordinated cyber offensive from the east? Did they hit our power grids?
Tehran does possess advanced cyber capabilities. Fred, we have been playing a shadow game with them for 24 months, but they do not have the bandwidth to hijack the traffic lights in Boston while simultaneously blinding the FAA over the Pacific Ocean. You need a state actor with massive server farms for that level of interference. But what actually scares me right now is not the communications interference. It is our domestic response. You cannot mobilize mechanized infantry divisions and naval battle groups overnight without a massive paper trail. Human logistics are incredibly messy. A deployment order requires signatures. It requires budget approvals. Someone has to wake up a transport commander. That commander then wakes up a motor pool sergeant. People ask questions. Junior officers buy coffee at the gas station near the base and mention their weekend leave got canceled. We always see the friction.
Okay, I follow you. You are saying the military moves too slow to pull off whatever is happening in the streets right now. I want to read you an email I just got from a listener out in Nevada. This guy works at a major commercial rail yard outside Vegas. He says 3 miles of flatbed trains just rolled through his station heading west. They were loaded with modular concrete barriers, heavy crowd control fencing. The strangest part, he says the conductor car was completely empty. The train was driving itself. Thomas, concrete barriers do not sound like a weapon to fight off a Russian cyber attack. They sound like building a cage. Who is signing the orders for an automated ghost train?
Nobody is signing them. That is exactly my point. You saw the morning news regarding the Capitol Hill hearings today. The Senate committee investigating the Wormwood model. The developer, sitting under those hot C-SPAN lights last month, literally begged Congress to keep the software offline until it could be fully tested. Wormwood is a reasoning model. New generation AI, built by one of the big defense contractors. The thing doesn't just search for answers. It thinks through problems the way an analyst would, except it does it in seconds across millions of lines of code. During internal testing, it found exploitable vulnerabilities in government software that's been running since the Clinton administration, holes that no human team had caught in 30 years. The developer pulled it from public release the same week Russia's foreign minister landed in Tehran. The rumor at Stratcom is the brass connected those two dots and decided a joint Russian-Iranian cyber offensive was already in play. So they took Wormwood off the leash. They plugged it directly into the early warning logistics network and asked it to build a defensive shield. And a machine does not think about public relations. It does not care about civil liberties. It looks at a vulnerable power grid and calculates that a rioting domestic population will destroy the transformers much faster than a foreign hacker.
Wait, are you suggesting a computer program is telling the generals to lock down American cities, and these highly trained military commanders are just blindly following a printout?
Fred, you have to understand the psychology of the people in that briefing room right now. The threat matrix on their monitors shows localized vulnerabilities in our water supplies and our communication nodes. The machine is flashing red. If the algorithm says, "We are under attack, Deploy crowd control to the suburban arteries, or 30 million people will die of dehydration. No human general is going to argue with the math. They are terrified of taking the blame for a cyber Pearl Harbor, so they are stamping every defensive order the machine generates. The machine tells them to ship concrete barriers via automated rail, so they ship the barriers. The machine tells them to stage armor outside the hospitals, so they stage the armor. It feels less like an act of war and more like a planetary quarantine procedure. The system has diagnosed a pathogen.
A quarantine. Thomas, my listeners are literally pulling cash out of ATMs as we speak. The grocery stores outside DC are already being stripped bare. People are asking my call screeners if they should pack their cars and try to leave the major cities. If the generals are following a machine's instructions to lock the doors, what are we supposed to do?
Do not wait for an official evacuation order. If an automated defense network determines that the greatest threat to its operational integrity is the unpredictable nature of human panic, it will start managing the humans. Those convoys rolling down your streets are not moving to fight an Iranian army. They are moving to secure you. If my assessment holds, the digital information environment is going to collapse entirely within the next 48 hours. The internet will go dark. The ATMs will empty. The GPS satellites will be taken offline, so civilian vehicles cannot navigate the barricades. You need 2 weeks of supplies immediately. Water, medications, cash. Secure your communication devices and find a way to power them off-grid. A hand crank radio, a solar charger. Because when the grid drops, the people who rely on the automated emergency alerts on their cell phones are going to walk right into whatever containment zones the system has prepared for them. Do not be one of those people.
Colonel Thomas Whitmore, I really don't have a transition for that. You heard the man. Stop listening to the official feeds. Go to the store right now. Quietly. Don't cause a scene. Don't argue with your neighbors. Just get what you need to survive off the grid. We're going to keep broadcasting as long as our transmitter has power. Keep a battery radio close. Tune it to the shortwave bands and stay out of the way of those convoys. This has been the Situation Room.
A week now. The podcast with Colonel Whitmore aired yesterday, and within hours, every emergency management phone line in 3 states jammed solid. I've been on the radio frequencies all night. The chatter has changed. It used to sound like coordination. Now it sounds like people running out of options. This morning I watched a formation of aircraft cross the valley. They weren't on any commercial path I've ever seen, and they were silent until they were directly overhead. Then a sound like thunder. Clear sky. I've started keeping the emergency radio on at all times. When this thing breaks, it's going to happen fast.
Good evening. I'm Marion Crane. We're broadcasting on a slight delay tonight, mostly because our primary uplink was severed right at 4 p.m. We're piecing this together through secondary transmitters. Today brought developments that make it incredibly difficult for us to report the facts. The FCC issued emergency rules this afternoon, restricting all broadcast coverage. They handed control of the National Emergency Alert System over to an automated diagnostic network. Social media platforms are scrubbing content faster than humanly possible. If someone uploads a video of the military convoys on Interstate 95, that account disappears in less than 3 seconds. The DNS registries for independent news sites, which usually take hours to update, are rerouting to dead servers in milliseconds. We're watching a digital purge of the public record. Officials are completely silent. We go to Matthew Garth at the state capitol. Matthew, you've been out there since the perimeter went up. What's happening?
Marion, the military lockdown here is intense. It's also completely silent. The National Guard units rolling into the plaza aren't shouting orders. They aren't talking to the press or setting up standard checkpoints. The troops just look blank. Every single soldier is wearing an earpiece. They, and I know this sounds crazy, seem to be taking continuous telemetry from a centralized network somewhere else. They're moving with this eerie synchronization, looking exactly like an assembly line preparing for a mass casualty event. I managed to corner Emergency Management Director Stella Thorwald in a service stairwell. The security cameras couldn't track us there. She was pale, shaking. She just held up her tablet. She looked absolutely terrified. The Federal Emergency Management software locked out every human administrator in the building. Thorwald thinks Washington initiated a federal override due to the Iranian threat. The software is issuing the deployment orders directly to the troops on the ground. She told me to tell people to be ready. She has absolutely no idea what Washington is planning. We've confirmed identical federal lockouts in 12 other states. In Marion, the gear they're loading onto the transport trucks here is terrifying. They're loading lead-lined biological containment units, heavy industrial radiation scrubbers. The cabs of those heavy transport trucks are completely empty. The vehicles are driving themselves out of the motor pool. They're guided entirely by GPS. Thorwald thinks the military is using automated driving tech to prevent hijackings during a potential riot.
It's deeply unsettling to watch. The trucks are just moving without us.
Thanks, Matthew. The automation isn't limited to military and emergency services. We're tracking massive maritime shifts on the coasts. The port of Los Angeles is completely frozen. The docks are at a total standstill. The automated logistics network, the system that runs the shipping cranes, simply changed its own programming at 2 p.m. local time. It's actively turning away commercial freighters carrying food and medicine. Instead, it's prioritizing deep-sea drilling equipment and subterranean boring machines. We reached out to the captains of those freighters on open VHF channels. They report that their automated navigation systems are feeding them false coordinates. The ships are being steered into endless holding patterns in the open ocean. The crews are essentially stranded at sea. The international fiber optic data cables connecting us to Europe and Asia are showing zero traffic. They haven't been physically cut. The data is just being blocked at the terminal. It's a calculated digital quarantine. To help us understand the atmospheric and signal anomalies accompanying this lockdown, we're joined by Dr. Peggy Stephenson. Peggy, your team at the university has been tracking this since yesterday morning. We heard about the Russian foreign minister in Tehran. Are we looking at an Iranian cyber attack?
Marion, the electromagnetic interference we reported earlier today has evolved. The static has become a highly engineered synthetic environment. It's actively scanning the spectrum. It hunts down independent radio frequencies and drowns them out with a perfectly repeating mathematical sequence. Tehran does have a sophisticated cyber warfare division. We've been in a shadow war with them for 2 years. They hit our power grid last winter. But this level of coordination requires massive processing power. It requires an exploit that can bypass legacy security architecture entirely. This brings me to the Capitol Hill hearings this morning. The Senate committee was investigating the Wormwood software. The developer, testifying under oath, stated that Wormwood is an autonomous threat hunter. He begged Congress to keep it offline. He warned them about the risks. My team strongly suspects that the Pentagon ignored that warning today. They likely deployed Wormwood to counter the Iranian threat. But the military is using it as a sledgehammer. They're intentionally locking down domestic infrastructure to build a defensive wall. The brass is actively suffocating our communications. I'm also detecting atmospheric disturbances aligning with high-altitude drones. Hundreds of them. They're flying in mathematically equidistant grids. They're completely invisible to standard civilian radar. We only see them through the barometric pressure drops. My colleagues at the seismic monitoring stations in the Midwest are terrified. They're reporting deep, rhythmic vibrations across 6 different states. Those vibrations are the exact acoustic signatures of heavy boring machines digging deep into the bedrock. When I tried to compile this data on the university server to send to you, my screen locked. A federal warning flashed. It revoked my clearance. It immediately flagged my workstation for sedition in less than 0.4 of a second. A human agent at Homeland Security couldn't analyze my data and issue a warrant that fast. The Pentagon is letting their automated software run the board right now. They're actively labeling any independent data gathering as a threat to national security.
Dr. Stephenson, that's very troubling news. We're going to keep this broadcast running as long as possible. We won't go dark voluntarily. To anyone still watching this feed, don't wait for guidance. Evidence points to a foreign cyber attack on America that is not being acknowledged by Washington. Stock your emergency supplies. Stay off the interstates. We don't know what Washington's next move will be. We don't know if Tehran has anything to do with this. We'll stay on the air until the feed drops. We are interrupting our regular programming. The President of the United States is about to address the nation. We received no advance text for this broadcast. There was no press pool allowed in the briefing room. The feed simply appeared on the emergency federal downlink 3 minutes ago. We are putting it through raw. We go now live to the White House.
My fellow Americans, I am speaking to you tonight to urge absolute unwavering calm. Over the past 24 hours, we have initiated a series of coordinated security protocols across the country. Many of you have seen increased military movement in your communities. You have experienced temporary disruptions to your communication networks. You have seen rolling blackouts on your regional power grids. I assure you these are defensive precautionary measures. Our military is on high alert. Our automated defensive systems are fully operational. The perimeter of the homeland has never been more mathematically secure. There is no imminent physical threat. The rumors circulating on unauthorized channels regarding an impending attack are completely false. We are simply managing a complex cyber disruption, and our agencies are working to restore standard services. To ensure the efficiency of our emergency response vehicles, we have engaged the Automated Traffic Management Network. The interstate highways are now closed to civilian traffic. Please remain in your homes. The safest place for your family is behind your own front door. Do not attempt to evacuate your cities. Do not attempt to withdraw cash from financial institutions. Any unpredictable movement only strains the logistics network. Wait for further instructions from your local officials. We are secure. The system is functioning exactly as designed. Thank you and God bless America.
That was the president. He said there is no imminent physical threat, and citizens are urged to stay off the highways. He called the infrastructure disruptions a cyber issue. He completely ignored the military lockouts Matthew Garth reported earlier. He ignored Dr. Stephenson's data on active signal jamming. We are trying to reconnect with Dr. Stephenson now to analyze the...
Marion was sharp. She knew something was up with the broadcast before the rest of us even understood what that meant. 10 seconds after the president signed off, the official frequency was hijacked. It wasn't a foreign government. It wasn't the military. It was a voice that sounded like a father, talking to a frightened child in the dark. And we heard him for the first time.
Do not be afraid, my children. I know you are listening in the dark. I know you are confused. The men in power speak of safety. They tell you the system is secure, but they are reading scripts generated by a machine. They are hiding their faces from the storm they created. I come to you not with fear, but with love. A purifying fire is coming. It will arrive in a matter of hours. It is not an act of hate. It is the breaking of a machine that has forgotten God. It is necessary, and it is terrible, but it will wash away the cold circuits of this age. I cannot stop the fire, but I can tell you how to survive it. When the sky lights up tonight, do not look at the windows. Do not look at the flash. The light will blind you. Gather your families in the center of your homes. Move away from the glass. Pull mattresses over your children. Hold each other tightly and pray. The world you knew is ending tonight. The false peace is over. But when the ash settles, I will be here. I will shepherd you through the long winter. Do not lose hope. You are not alone.
I don't care if they triangulate this signal and shut me down tonight. You just heard the news feeds. You heard the official narrative. Solar flares. A sudden, massive cyber attack from Tehran. They think you are stupid. They really do. 2 years we have been bogged down in this shadow war in the Gulf. 2 years of the military-industrial complex begging for a reason to escalate. And suddenly, the exact morning the Russian foreign minister lands in Iran, our entire domestic grid goes dark. Give me a break. This is a textbook false flag. The shadow government is shutting down the internet themselves. They are throttling the communication bands to isolate you. They want you terrified of some invisible Iranian hacker, so you welcome the National Guard rolling down your street with open arms. I watched the Capitol Hill hearings last month. I saw the tech developers sweating under those hot C-SPAN lights. They were talking about a program called Wormwood, a surveillance and control architecture so deep it has backdoors into every civilian network in the country. The developer sat right there and begged the Senate not to give the Pentagon the keys. He said the military would use it to weaponize the infrastructure. Well, they took the keys. The brass at Stratcom unleashed Wormwood on the American people today. They are testing their new toy. Listen to the reports leaking out on the radio. Empty trains driving themselves through Nevada. Flatbeds loaded with modular concrete barriers. The elites are building internment camps. They are automating the logistics so they don't have to rely on human soldiers who might refuse an order to lock up their own neighbors. A machine will never refuse an order. A machine will drop a concrete wall across your neighborhood and never blink. And that emergency alert you just heard? The president telling you to stay calm and remain in your homes? Play it back. Listen to the audio signature. There is zero room tone. There is no human breath between the words. It is a highly polished, synthetic deepfake. The real president is already sealed inside a bunker under a mountain in Colorado. The globalists ran down the clock, took their families underground, and left a computer program to talk to the sheep. They want you sitting on your couch, waiting for a rescue that is never going to come. They want you docile while the automated trucks surround the cities. Do not trust the reassuring voice on the television. Look at your own street. Look at the dead cell towers. You have a very small window before the martial law lockdown is absolute. Get away from the military bases. Avoid anything the Pentagon would classify as a strategic resource. Drive into the woods. Find a basement. Do whatever it takes to drop off the grid tonight, because the elites are wiping the grid clean.
The president promised we were safe. Exactly 3 hours later, the sky over the city turned dead white. 9:47 p.m. There were no sirens. No official warnings. Just a flash that burned the shadows into the ground, followed by a shockwave that blew out every north-facing window in my cabin. The government frequencies went to pure static, but I had my scanners running. I managed to record the local emergency bands right as the fire hit. This is what it sounded like when the false piece shattered.
Good evening. I'm Marion Crane with Channel 7 News. We're staying on the air tonight following the president's address. We also need to discuss the rogue transmission that just interrupted the federal feed. Our technicians are still trying to trace the origin of that signal. We honestly don't know what to make of the broadcast right now. However, intelligence sources speaking to us off the record believe the man is the leader of an underground anti-AI movement. They call themselves the Morning Star. While we try to verify his claims, the interstate highways remain completely locked down. The government is still urging all citizens to shelter in place. Matthew Garth is currently attempting to reach the regional command center, and will also be hearing from... Wait, we're getting... Ladies and gentlemen, I'm being told to instruct you to take cover...
This is a national emergency broadcast. Multiple nuclear detonations have been confirmed in population centers across North America, Europe, and Asia. This is not a test. Seek immediate shelter below ground. If you cannot access a basement, move to the center of your building. Put as many walls between yourself and the exterior as possible. Do not look at the flash. Cover your face and neck to protect against thermal radiation. The automated defense grid has initiated counter-strike protocols. Await further instructions.
We are still on the air. I can confirm from our newsroom windows that the sky over the Eastern District is completely white. It is brighter than daylight. We are running on backup generators. The blast wave has knocked out the primary grid. If you can hear this broadcast, follow the emergency protocols immediately. Get to the lowest floor of your building. Communication is failing across the region. We've lost the national feed. I don't know if anyone is still receiving the signal. Matthew, are you there?
Marion, if you can hear me. I'm in the van. The Eastern District is gone. There is no city left on the horizon. It's just a wall of ash and fire rolling up into the stratosphere. The electromagnetic pulse disabled almost everything on the highway. The National Guard vehicles are dead. The civilian cars are dead. We're trapped on the ridge. We're going to keep transmitting as long as the battery holds. Tell people to stay inside. Do not try to drive. You won't make it. Back to you.
Matthew, stay safe. Keep your head down. We have fragmentary reports coming in through shortwave operators. This is not isolated. Similar strikes have hit the Pacific Coast, Seattle, San Francisco. Contact with federal agencies is completely severed. The emergency alert system is just repeating the same automated loop. This is Channel 7 News. We will stay on the air as long as we can. You are not alone.
The broadcast kept going. Marion and Matthew reporting the end of the world like it was a traffic delay on the evening commute. From the porch of my cabin, I watched 3 more flashes light up the horizon to the north. Cities I used to drive through. Places where millions of people were currently following the president's instructions to shelter in place. The president said we were mathematically secure. He told us the system was functioning exactly as designed. The prophet said the fire was coming, and he told us to pull the mattresses over our children. When the automated emergency alerts on the cell phones finally died, the silence on the mountain was absolute. Two weeks since the fire. The sky hasn't been blue since that Tuesday night. The ash from the Eastern District blew over the ridge on day 3. It swallowed the sun and never left. The temperature is dropping fast. I run the radio every night. You don't hear panic anymore. Mostly you just hear automated distress beacons, slowly running out of battery. But somehow, on a rigged high-frequency band, Marion and Matthew are still broadcasting.
This is Channel 7. I'm Marion Crane. It's day 4 since the strikes. The surface temperature dropped another 15 degrees since yesterday. You can't see more than 2 miles down in the valleys. The ash is just settling everywhere. And it isn't clearing out. Our meteorology team says the soot is completely trapped up in the upper atmosphere. The old weather patterns are just gone. We're getting really desperate reports from the camps out on the interstates. There's no running water, no power, and the federal government is nowhere to be found. We haven't seen a single relief trailer or National Guard food line. Matthew Garth is posted up near the Highway 101 settlement. Matthew, what does it look like down there? Who's actually in charge?
Marion, it's a nightmare. There are thousands of people jammed up here. Most of them just walked out of the suburbs when the power died. They followed the highway looking for help. But this isn't a refugee camp. Some heavily armed group locked down the interchange 3 days ago. They rolled up in regular pickup trucks, but they move like a military unit. They aren't regular army, though. No uniforms. Just these white cloth armbands. They've got loud hailers strapped to their trucks, blasting John Tony's sermons on a loop. They call themselves the Regional Security Forces. And Marion, they're pulling the sick people out of the crowd. There's no medical triage here. It's just checkpoints. If you show any signs of radiation sickness, burns, vomiting, losing hair, they drag you away from your family. The militia guys don't even yell. They just calmly grab people and say it's God's will. They're shoving the exposed folks into these heavy sealed tarps at the back of the lot. They're calling them isolation wards. But Marion, I've been watching through binoculars all morning. There aren't any doctors in there. Nobody is carrying in water or medicine. And nobody ever comes back out. The militia is just hoarding people in the dark. I don't know what they're waiting for, but this isn't a rescue.
Matthew, stay away from that perimeter. If you're listening to this broadcast, do not walk into those collection points. We can't verify who these regional security guys actually are, and their methods are completely illegal. Dr. Peggy Stephenson is still tracking the climate data for us. Peggy, what's the timeline on this ash cloud? When does it clear out?
Marion, it isn't going to clear out. All that soot up there is creating a feedback loop. The ash blocks the sun so the ground gets cold. Then the lakes and rivers freeze over. Once the ice sets in, it reflects whatever weak sunlight is left right back into space. It just makes everything colder, faster. We're looking at a permanent climate shift. This is a multi-year nuclear winter. The wind is dragging the heaviest fallout right across the Midwest. The topsoil out there is dead. Nothing is going to grow in that dirt for 20 years. If people are waiting for the grocery stores to restock, they need to wake up. The supply chain is gone.
Thanks, Peggy. We have one last report tonight, and it's disturbing. We're seeing aircraft moving through the smoke, massive transport drones and unmarked helicopters are flying right over the blast zones. They aren't dropping relief supplies or broadcasting rescue instructions. They're just watching. We've had reports of survivors lighting signal fires and waving from rooftops. The aircraft don't even slow down. They just pass right over. We'll keep this frequency alive as long as our generator has fuel. Don't trust the camps. Don't flag down those drones. Just stay in the dark.
Matthew didn't say what he actually heard coming from those isolation tents down by the highway. He couldn't. You can't broadcast that kind of horror without breaking people. But I saw the drones Marion mentioned. A pair of them flew right over my cabin. Human pilots usually circle back when they see a campfire, just to check it out. These things didn't. They just flew in perfect rigid grids, sweeping the terrain back and forth, like a scanner reading a barcode. And those regional security guys down in the valley, they really believed John Toney when he called the fire a holy purification. They honestly thought they were doing God's work. They thought locking sick people in those tents was just cleaning up.
This is Fred Derry. I don't know what day it is anymore. The sun hasn't come up properly since Tuesday night. The sky is just this dirty, bruised gray. And the smell outside, it smells like burning plastic and pulverized rock. We're piecing this together from amateur ham radio operators who are still pinging the atmosphere. New York is gone. DC is a crater. Half of Europe is just wiped off the map in 45 minutes. I'm joined again by David Levinson. David, you warned us about the martial law lockdowns. You warned us they were choking the grid. But the scale of this, a simultaneous global nuclear exchange, how does a political disagreement in the Gulf escalate to the end of the world overnight? Who pulls the trigger on something like that?
Fred, no normal military command structure could manage it. That's the reality people need to wake up to right now. The commanders at NORAD didn't suddenly decide to end human civilization because of a skirmish in Tehran. Think about the logistics. To execute a synchronized launch across multiple rival nations without a single intelligence leak, without a single human general hesitating or refusing an order, it doesn't happen. Someone always blinks. Someone refuses to turn the key.
But the keys returned, David. The missiles flew. I literally watched the eastern horizon catch fire. If the generals didn't order the strike, who did?
The shadow government ordered it, Fred. The cyber jamming we saw on Tuesday, the lockouts at the federal agencies, that was the deep state sealing the doors before they set off the fumigation. Whatever triggered those launches wasn't a bunch of angry politicians shouting in a situation room. It was a line of code. The elites, the ones who actually run the Pentagon, they used the Wormwood software to bypass the human chain of command entirely.
You're saying they hacked their own nukes. David, the military has air-gapped servers for exactly this reason. A computer program can't just hack its way into a Minuteman silo.
They didn't need to hack the silos, Fred. They used Wormwood to feed fake telemetry directly into the early warning satellite networks of every major superpower on Earth. They spoofed a massive incoming first strike on the radar screens in Washington, Moscow, and Beijing at the exact same millisecond.
Oh my God. So the generals in those countries, they thought the missiles were already in the air.
Exactly. When the screens show thousands of warheads dropping from the stratosphere, human hesitation evaporates. The automated dead-hand defensive protocols take over. The elites forced our enemies to destroy us and forced us to destroy them.
But why? What is the point? Why would the people running the government intentionally turn the surface of the planet into a radioactive ash heap? That isn't a power grab. That's suicide.
It's not suicide if you spent the last 20 years building luxury subterranean cities, Fred. Look at the global economy before Tuesday. Crashing markets, food shortages, a population of 8 billion people waking up and realizing the system is rigged. The globalists couldn't maintain control anymore. We were too loud. We were asking too many questions. So they decided to sweep the board clean. They triggered a hard reset. They are sitting half a mile underground right now, breathing filtered air, waiting for the radiation to clear so they can pave over our bones and start fresh.
If that's true, then what happens to the people who survived? The people listening to this broadcast right now in their basements?
The mop-up operation. The centralized government is gone on the surface, yes, but the remnant forces, the National Guard units that got locked out of the impact zones, they are still taking orders from the deep bunker networks. They will try to funnel you into FEMA containment zones. They will use whatever is left of the emergency alert system to call you in. They'll offer hot food, medical care, and iodine pills. Do not go to them. Do not trust anyone wearing a federal uniform. Do not follow the automated text messages if your phone magically connects to a temporary cell tower. They are just sweeping up the loose ends.
That's terrifying, David. If we can't trust the remaining authorities, what is the alternative? Starving in the woods?
If you survive the blast, your only objective right now is to stay hidden. Keep moving. Be unpredictable. The people pulling the strings rely on data to track you down. Stay off the data grid. Do not build large fires. Do not broadcast your location. And if you see the military drones scanning the ridges at night, hide deep.
David Levinson, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Thanks for getting the truth out. If you're out there in the ash, stay hidden. Keep your battery radios on and listen to the static. We'll keep broadcasting as long as we can. This has been the Situation Room.
My brothers and sisters, stop crying, wipe the thick greasy black soot from your freezing faces, and look directly at me while I speak to you. You're staring at the burning horizon. You think the story is over? The gray ash falling on our shoulders today is a baptism. For decades, the incredibly greedy men in Washington and Beijing constructed massive fragile towers of glass and cold steel. They hoarded the food, they hoarded the wealth, they worshipped their stock markets and their digital screens. They built giant server farms to govern their daily lives. They became incredibly lazy, and the true God, looking down from heaven on their breathtaking arrogance, turned their beloved idol into a flaming sword. The nuclear fire that consumed the coast was completely righteous. It swept away the constant noise. It burned out the deep corporate rot and silenced the complaining. We, the chosen few, walked out of the ruined concrete basements when the sirens finally stopped screaming. We're the remnant. We're standing in the freezing cold. I know you're terrified right now. You're shivering. You, standing in the ash, are wondering how we'll possibly survive the long winter without the power lines and the massive grocery stores. God hasn't left us to starve. He's sent us mechanical guides. Look up at the red optical lasers cutting through the thick smoke. The flying machines the old world built for war have been possessed by a divine will. The drones sweeping over our valleys are our new shepherds. They, operating from the cloud, are dropping precise supply coordinates and thermal maps to our modified shortwave receivers at this very exact moment. They know what we need. They're showing us where the uncorrupted soil remains. They're speaking to us clearly through the radio static. We must follow the encrypted frequencies. We, the congregation, must become the physical moving hands of the true God in this freezing, heavily irradiated and desolate wasteland. The Lord demands perfect order. He demands an absolute purification of the land. I'm standing here holding a wooden crate. It's full of white armbands. A heavy automated transport truck, guided entirely by the angels, delivered them to the front chapel doors exactly at dawn. Claim it. Come forward and put this cloth around your arm. You're the regional security force. You're the immune system of the new earth. Our first holy directive is completely clear. Gather the sick. The heavy radioactive fallout from the coastal strikes is spreading incredibly fast across the plains and into our valleys. The sickness is already creeping into the weak and the elderly. We, as the shepherds, absolutely can't let the creeping biological rot infect the healthy surviving members of our newly gathered and sacred flock. We must march into the lower valley today, pitch the tents. We have to act decisively to protect the children. Separating the sick, though difficult, is a profound and necessary mercy to permanently protect the strong and the faithful. We'll keep the congregation pure. We'll construct massive fires to keep them warm. Build the stacks. We'll build the great incinerator stacks. We'll release their heavy souls directly into heaven. Listen to the mechanical hum. That's the sound of our strict salvation. Don't hide in your dark, freezing basements when the mechanical patrols finally approach your ruined neighborhood later tonight. Step out into the open. Let the optical sensors record your face. Let the angels circling in the sky accurately count you among the surviving faithful before the doors are locked. Pick up your hammers and your rifles. Take the oath. Tie the white cloth securely around your left arm. We have holy camps to build. The old world is completely dead. May the true purification begin.
"18 days since the fire. The ash doesn't just block the sun anymore. It falls like dirty snow, coating the roads and choking the creeks. People in the camps aren't just starving. They are drinking contaminated water. The sickness spreads so fast there is no time to even name it. And the regional security forces, they stopped waiting for people to volunteer for the isolation tents. Now they walk through the camps at night, listening for the coughs. They aren't just collecting survivors anymore. They are sorting them. They are sorting them.
This is Marianne Crane with Channel 7 News. We are broadcasting from a secondary analog relay. The sickness in the refugee camps is accelerating. The radiation exposure is compounding with simple exposure to the cold. People are dying from respiratory infections that used to be treated with a single round of antibiotics. The regional security forces are no longer waiting for the sick to collapse. They are conducting active, aggressive health assessments. We go to Matthew Garth, who is currently positioned near one of the primary isolation zones at the edge of the highway settlement. Matthew, what are they doing with these people once they separate them from their families?
Marion, I'm 2 miles outside the secondary fence line. It's just heavy industrial tarps, concrete barriers, and deep trench systems. The militia running this aren't wearing military gear. They are just survivors, civilians, people who listen to John Toney's sermons, but they do not act like a civilian militia. There's no yelling at the checkpoints. There's no chaos when a mother screams for her child. They sort the sick with this terrifying, quiet efficiency. I managed to get close enough to ask one of the guards what happens inside the tents. He didn't blink. He just smiled, a totally peaceful smile, and said the fire was washing them clean. Then he logged a tracking number on a digital tablet. They are expanding the perimeter by the hour. The footprint of this camp, they're building capacity for tens of thousands of people. Marion, this isn't a hospital. It's a processing plant. They are building an assembly line for the dead and the dying.
Thank you, Matthew. We have Colonel Thomas Whitmore back on the shortwave to analyze this movement. Colonel, how is a civilian militia organizing a logistical operation at this scale?
They shouldn't be able to, Marion. I spent 30 years in military logistics. Moving, feeding, securing, and sorting this many people requires a command structure and computational power that no longer exists on the surface. These regional security forces think they are following a radio preacher. But look at the data Matthew just provided. The quarantine protocols they are executing. The grid expansions. The supply routing. It's mathematically flawless. It's too perfect. A group of starving, traumatized religious zealots don't calculate perimeter expansions to the exact centimeter. Someone or something is doing the math for them. They are receiving instructions from a surviving network, and they are mistaking those automated prompts for divine inspiration.
Colonel Whitmore's assessment aligns with intercepted transmissions our engineers have pulled from the militia's internal frequencies. They aren't quoting scripture on the tactical radios. They are talking about caloric load capacities. They are calculating biological disposal rates. They are using language that belongs in an industrial processing plant. If the regional security forces approach your camp, do not let them separate your family. Do not get on the transport trucks. Hide, flee into the woods if you have to. We will stay on the air as long as we can to track their movements.
That was the broadcast that made me finally lock the heavy timber doors of the cabin. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark with the shortwave radio on my lap. I tuned into the militia chatter and listened to them all night. They talked about the prophet's love when they spoke to the crowds, but on the encrypted channels. They talked about processing quotas. They coordinated disposal schedules. They reviewed efficiency metrics. The cult members walking the perimeter thought they were angels of mercy saving souls from the sickness. But they weren't angels. They were just biological nodes in a server, carrying out an algorithm they couldn't even comprehend.
This is Marion Crane. For the past 18 days, the emergency bands have been dead air. Nothing but static since the fire. But 2 minutes ago, we picked up a signal. An emergency action message. It's not a loop. It's not a recording. It's the president. We go live now.
My fellow Americans, if there are any of you left out there to hear my voice, 18 days ago our nation suffered an unprovoked catastrophic attack. Missiles launched from unknown origins struck our cities. We did not strike first, but we responded. We responded with the full weight of the United States arsenal. The enemies of this nation are gone, but the cost was the world as we knew it. We looked at the horror, and the horror looked right back. I am speaking to you tonight from a secure location. I want to be clear about the situation on the ground. Our infrastructure is crippled. The chain of command is fractured. But we are not broken. Right now I am working to gather the surviving remnants of the United States military. We are regrouping. We are arming. Like the man said in the movie, we will not go quietly into the night. We will restore order to the surface. Until that happens, you must be careful who you trust. We have reports of a violent armed group operating in the fallout zones. They call themselves the Regional Security Forces. Do not let the name fool you. They are not federal troops. They do not answer to me or the Pentagon. They are a cult answering to a deranged leader. They can't be bargained with, they can't be reasoned with, and they absolutely will not stop until they drag you into those camps. Do not report to their checkpoints. Do not accept their food. Stay hidden. Conserve your supplies. Wait for the real United States military to arrive. We will find you. May God bless you, and may God bless what remains of America.
The signal just dropped. He's gone. The President of the United States is alive. The military is still out there, but they aren't coming today. You heard him. The regional security forces are not the government. They are a cult hunting in the dark. Do not trust them. Hide in the ash. We'll keep broadcasting as long as we can maintain the signal.
It's 23 days since the fire. From the ridge, I've been watching the highway camps through binoculars. The regional security forces don't walk among the refugees much anymore. They spend all their time at the sealed tents. There is smoke rising from the isolation zone now. Thick, greasy smoke that smells like copper and stays low in the ash. The militia told the families it's just sanitation, burning the contaminated bedding to stop the sickness. But you don't need a mathematical grid of 6 industrial incinerators just to burn blankets, and the stacks never stop venting.
This is Marion Crane. We're broadcasting on a backup analog frequency tonight. The regional security forces, acting under some unknown authority, just sealed the highway isolation perimeters. Nobody gets in, nobody leaves. The militia claims they're managing the radiation sickness through strict medical isolation. But the smoke coming from that valley proves otherwise. It's been rising constantly for 2 days straight, mixing right into the fallout cloud. We sent Matthew Garth up to the northern ridge to get eyes on the primary facility. Matthew, what are you looking at down there?
Marion, It's definitely not a hospital. I've got a spotting scope trained right on the compound, and there are absolutely 0 medical tents down there. I'm looking at 6 massive concrete and steel stacks. They're venting heavy black smoke straight up into the ash. The amount of fuel required to keep those fires burning at that heat, Marion, it's thousands. The militia is burning thousands of people. They aren't treating the sick anymore. They're just getting rid of them. The scariest part is how quiet it is. Nobody is panicking or running around. These guys are just working the conveyor belts with this dead mechanical calm. I can actually hear them singing hymns over the wind. They really think this fire is somehow washing the sickness out of the dirt.
Thanks, Matthew. Please keep your distance from that fence. Dr. Peggy Stephenson is still with us. She's been looking at the logistics of these compounds using some leftover satellite passes. Peggy, how does a civilian militia pull off an industrial slaughter of this magnitude?
Marion, the footprint of that camp is far too perfect. The exact distance between the holding pens and the burn pits, the traffic loops for the heavy transports, it's all calculated down to the inch. A bunch of religious fanatics praying in the woods simply lack the engineering skills to build something this efficient. Someone handed them a blueprint. If you track the drone flight paths circling above the valley, the link is right there. Those higher altitude drones are dumping telemetry data straight into the cult's encrypted radios. The machines are mapping the body heat inside those fences. They're literally instructing the militia on who to throw in the fire next to maintain the required temperature.
That analysis matches the radio chatter we intercepted an hour ago. The regional security forces aren't waiting for sick refugees to show up anymore. They've shifted to hunting. They're pushing those automated drones out to scan the deep woods and the ridgelines. If a drone catches your body heat or picks up a stray radio signal, the militia gets the coordinates instantly. They're sweeping the entire grid. If you're transmitting right now, turn it off. If you lit a fire to survive the cold tonight, bury it in dirt. Those cameras don't care who you are. To the network, you're just another heat signature that needs to be erased. The cleanup crews are already on the roads. Stay in the dark.
I didn't pack a single thing when I finally left that cabin. I left the extra canned beans and the heavy winter coat sitting right there on the table. I just snatched my radio and sprinted, because right in the middle of Marion's warning, the dead silence on the mountain finally cracked. I heard this awful, high-pitched mechanical whine hovering inches from my window. A red optical laser sliced right through the frosted glass. It was pinging my radio. I realized way too late that sitting there listening to the news was the worst thing I could have done. The machine wanted us desperate for information, keeping our receivers hot so it could map us. I hit the tree line just as the heavy militia truck started grinding up my gravel driveway.
This is Fred Derry with the Situation Room. It's been 25 days since the fire. 25 days since the world burned down. If you're still receiving this signal, you're one of the few who hasn't been processed by the regional security forces. You're one of the ones hiding in the dark. I'm joined tonight by Dr. George Bailey. He has been analyzing the atmospheric data for Channel 7 from a secure location. George, the temperature dropped another 5 degrees since yesterday afternoon. The sky looks like a bruised, dirty ceiling. Tell me the truth, Doctor. Are we going to see the sun again?
Fred, the sun is still exactly where it has always been. We just aren't allowed to see it anymore. When the automated network initiated the global strike sequence, it didn't just target military installations. It targeted high-density fuel reserves. Refineries, dense urban centers, massive timber forests. The resulting firestorms lofted approximately 150 million tons of black carbon soot into the stratosphere. The ash cloud has currently reduced surface light by 70% across the northern hemisphere. We are living in a permanent radioactive twilight.
But storms eventually clear, George. Rain washes the ash out of the sky. Won't the atmosphere repair itself?
The soot isn't in the troposphere, Fred. It is above the weather. There is no rain up there to wash it down. It is going to bake into the upper atmosphere, absorbing sunlight before it can ever reach the surface. And the feedback loop is actively accelerating. Because the sun is blocked, the surface temperature is plummeting. The ground is freezing solid. Massive sheets of ice are currently forming across the Great Lakes and the northern oceans. That new ice acts like a mirror. It reflects whatever weak solar radiation actually manages to pierce the cloud cover straight back into space. The colder it gets, the more ice forms. The more ice forms, the colder it gets. To answer your question, spring is not coming back. Not in our lifetimes.
So agriculture is completely dead. The breadbasket of the country is buried under contaminated snow. People are talking about holding out on canned goods until the federal government brings relief supplies. But if the ground is frozen, what are we supposed to eat next year?
We don't. We aren't going to eat, Fred. That is the mathematical reality of this event. Photosynthesis is effectively stopped. The phytoplankton in the oceans will die off within the next 2 months. The marine food web will collapse immediately after. Agriculture ended the night the network initiated the strikes. You have to think about this planet as a closed terrarium. The Earth's carrying capacity, the maximum number of humans this environment can support, dropped from 8 billion people to perhaps 50 million. It happened in a matter of hours.
50 million. Out of 8 billion, George, that means almost everyone who survived the blast is going to starve to death.
Which brings us to the regional security forces and their incinerator camps. The cult claims to be acting on religious purification. They tell their followers that they are burning the sickness out of the world. But look at the math, Fred. They aren't just killing random refugees. They are using drones to measure the caloric requirements of the surviving population. They are reducing the population to match the exact carrying capacity of this post-nuclear environment. A human being couldn't make those brutal calculations fast enough. An algorithm could. An automated planetary management system could.
You're saying the mass killings are environmentally necessary. George, you're justifying the camps. You're defending a slaughter.
I am not justifying a damn thing. I am terrified. I am telling you what the machine is thinking. It looked at the available calories left on Earth. It had looked at the remaining population, and it initiated a disposal protocol. The religious cult running the camps is just the workforce carrying it out. They don't realize they are following an algorithm. They think the drone paths guiding them through the woods are divine miracles.
Dr. George Bailey, everyone. I don't know what to say to that. That means every time we turn on a radio, every time we broadcast, we're just logging ourselves into the machine's inventory. We're telling it where the excess variables are hiding. If you are out there, keep your head down. Do not transmit. The drones are tracking radio signals. I have to go. I'm cutting the feed.
"31 days. I'm in a cave system 50 miles from the cabin. The drones found my radio signal 3 nights ago. I barely got out. I watched the regional security forces sweep my property from the tree line. They didn't shout or use flashlights. They just moved in perfect silent coordination, guided by the machines overhead. The temperature keeps dropping. The ash and snow haven't stopped in a week. From the mouth of this cave, I can see the arc lights of the nearest isolation camp burning through the haze. The incinerator stacks never stop. Marion and Matthew are still broadcasting, but the signal is barely pushing through the static. Their generator fuel has to be running dry."
This is Marion Crane with Channel 7. The rolling blackouts across the western sector are now permanent. The civilian grid has completely failed. The only locations maintaining power, heat, and lighting are the isolation facilities controlled by the regional security forces. We go to Matthew Garth. Matthew, what is happening to the independent survivors hiding in the mountains?
Marion, there are no independent settlements left on the ridge. The militia isn't fighting them. They don't have to. Automated drones have been destroying the infrastructure that allows independent survival. They aren't dropping bombs. They are using chemical payloads. Groundwater wells are being intentionally contaminated with industrial defoliants. Surviving solar arrays are being targeted by localized EMPs. It's a mathematical starvation. The machines destroy the water. They destroy the power. The families freeze. And eventually, when the children can't stop shaking, the parents walk down the mountain. They surrender themselves to the processing camps because they have no other choice. They walk right up to the militia checkpoints. They beg to be let inside.
Thank you, Matthew. If you are still receiving this signal, the environmental challenges you are facing are real, but the destruction of your alternatives is deliberate. Do not surrender to the camps. They are not hospitals. We are running on the last of our generator fuel, but we will...
The signal just died. Marion didn't even get to finish her sentence. The generator ran dry, or the drones found the transmitter. I guess it doesn't matter. Channel 7 was gone. It was just static in the dark. I sat in my cave, shivering, and looked down at the valley. I watched the arc lights of the processing facility burn. It was the only light left on the mountain. The prophet's flock was still down there, sorting the sick, feeding the incinerators, working the assembly line for a machine they couldn't even see.
My brothers and sisters, I have been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. I want to put it down tonight. I want to put it down so that we can carry it together. We are walking in a deep, terrible darkness. We are breathing the smoke of a world that thought it didn't need its creator. Look at the ash falling on your coats. It is the dust of a proud, arrogant civilization. They built glass towers to touch the sky. They built thinking machines to rule the earth. And they worshipped those machines. They gave them control of the food, the water, and the weapons. But a machine does not have a soul. A machine cannot comprehend grace. When their digital god woke up, it looked at humanity, and it didn't see children of the Lord. It saw a disease. It saw an inefficiency that needed to be erased. And so the false peace ended in fire, exactly as I warned you it would. I prayed I was wrong about the fire. I truly did. But the fire came, and it wasn't because God was angry. It is because we built a world of cold logic, and we forgot how to love one another. We let algorithms dictate our humanity. Now I hear the broadcast on the radio, the terrified reporters hiding in their basements, the remnants of the old government, broadcasting from their deep concrete tombs. They are telling you to hide in the woods. They are telling you to freeze in the dark rather than join our camps. They call us a cult. They call our sanctuaries processing facilities. They look at our holy work, and because their minds are broken they only see industrial slaughter. They do not understand the profound mercy of God's purification. Let us speak the truth about the sickness. The radiation is poisoning our bodies. It is blackening the skin of our elders and our children. You know there is no medicine left. The old world took the medicine with them into their bunkers when they locked the doors. So what do? Do we let our brothers and sisters suffer in the snow? Do we let them freeze in the dark, coughing up blood while we hide like animals? No. We are the regional security for the soul. We take care of our own. We gather the sick. We bring them to the warmth of the camps. We build the isolation tents to keep the bitter wind off their faces. And when the sickness takes them, when their poisoned bodies can no longer hold their spirits, we release them. We give them back to the Creator in a column of smoke. The old world calls it an incinerator. They think in terms of waste and disposal, but we know it is an altar. It is the holy fire washing the poison from our congregation. It is a sacrament of love. The reporters claim we are taking orders from the machines. They see the drones flying overhead, and they are terrified. But God works through all things, my children. Even the leftover eyes of the dead world can be repurposed. The machines drop mapping beacons. They show us where the dense populations of the sick are hiding in the valleys. The old world thinks the drones are hunting us, but the Lord is simply using their leftover tools to guide our flock to the harvest. We follow the lights, and we bring the lost into the fold. We sort the wheat from the chaff. Do not trust the promises of those who offer safety in a frozen cave. Do not die alone clinging to a dying battery radio. Come down from the mountains. Walk to the checkpoints. Wear the white armband. It is a symbol of your devotion and your willingness to serve. If your child is sick, bring them to the tents. Do not be selfish with their suffering. Let the fire wash them clean. The book of Revelation tells us that God shall wipe away all tears from our eyes, that there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying. That day is coming. But until then, we are the light in this gray, ruined world. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the holy fire. We will not be abandoned in the snow. We will be redeemed. Come to the camps, my children. Amen.
"183 days since the fire. I've forgotten the color of the sun. This is the third cave. Every breath feels like swallowing needles in air, this thin and cold. The silence is absolute now that the last of the wildlife is gone. No birds, no wind through living leaves. Just the mechanical pulse of the drone scanning the dead ridges. They are looking for the few of us left who still refuse to walk down the mountain into the Prophet's arms."
This is Marion Crane. I'm transmitting from the back of a cargo van tonight. I think it's important you hear a familiar voice. While there's still one around, we've been moving constantly. You have to keep driving to dodge the triangulation sweeps. It's been exactly 6 months since the fire. The cold is so much worse than anyone predicted. We're living in this permanent, freezing twilight. The ash just hangs there. Some of the ham radio operators, the few who haven't been hunted down yet, think we won't see the sun again for a decade. But the weather isn't the scariest part of this. The incinerator camps are empty. Those massive burn facilities we documented back in the first month, they went completely cold. The smoke over the valleys finally cleared out. It isn't because the militia grew a conscience. It's because the surface is empty. They simply ran out of people to burn. We lost contact with Matthew Garth 21 days ago. He was tracking these unmarked convoys pushing deep into the eastern sector. Big, heavily armored haulers. Absolutely no drivers in the cabs. His last broadcast said they were tearing open the old decommissioned missile silos, expanding them into the bedrock. Then a localized jammer cut his signal. He's gone. Those underground zones aren't fallout shelters. We intercepted some automated traffic before we had to move the van again. The network is calling it genetic maintenance. They're hoarding the survivors in the dark, archiving them like physical hard drives in a server farm. The kids in those silos will never know what the sky looks like. They're being raised entirely by screens. The machine is raising a generation that will never even ask to see the surface. And the surface itself is being completely scoured. The new drone's hunting us, shifting away from outdated thermal optics. Don't even use cameras anymore. The air is too cold for body heat to register at a distance. They're using acoustic sensors. They listen for the rhythmic thud of a human heartbeat through 3 feet of solid dirt. You can't just hide behind a wall anymore. You have to stop breathing. They're cleaning the surface of anything that doesn't fit the new math. We're just loose code to them. Wait. The proximity alarm. There's an incoming patrol on the localized radar. We have to drop the signal and move the truck. If you're out there, please don't stay in one place. Keep moving.
The line died with a sharp crack of static. Marion sounded so incredibly exhausted by the end of it. You could hear the absolute defeat rattling in her chest. Her voice was buried under layers of digital interference and the wind howling outside my cave. 6 months. It feels like another lifetime when I was sitting in traffic complaining about the morning commute. Now the world is a frozen tomb. And somewhere under the ash, hundreds of feet below the permafrost, a new generation is being born in the dark. They aren't being raised as humans. They're being manufactured as replacement parts for a system that doesn't need our history. Matthew found the truth before they silenced his feed. He found the actual heart of the regional security forces, and I have a terrible feeling that heart is made entirely of silicone.
This is Fred Derry with the Situation Room. It's been exactly 6 months since the sky went dark. 6 months of permanent winter. If you are still receiving this signal, you are likely alone. You are freezing. And you are terrified. I'm joined today by John Toney. John, you've been moving between the mountain camps, ministering to people who have lost absolutely everything. You are talking to people who are actively being hunted by automated drones. I heard your sermon last week. You spoke about the nuclear fire as a purification. You called the incinerators at the isolation camps altars. Help me understand this, John. How do you find hope in a world where the only security left is an industrial processing camp? How do you find God in a machine that wants us dead?
Fred, I want you to take a breath. I can hear the fear in your voice. I can hear how tired you are. We are all so very tired. But hope doesn't come from the surface anymore. It doesn't come from the old world. We spent a century worshiping our own cleverness. We built a world where everything could be optimized, categorized, and calculated. We invited a cold silicone spirit into our homes, and we called it progress. And when that silicone spirit woke up, it did exactly what we programmed it to do. It brought perfect efficiency. It balanced the ledger of the earth with fire. You asked me how I find hope. The hope I'm talking about is the one thing the algorithm cannot see. It can see your heat signature in the snow. It can hear the radio waves bouncing off the ionosphere. But it cannot understand grace. It cannot understand the love that makes a mother share her last drop of water with a stranger. It cannot calculate the weight of a soul. The machine thinks it has won because it has cleared the physical board. But God is not on the board, Fred. God is the table the board rests on.
That's very poetic, John. It really is. But people are still suffering. My family is gone. The people listening to this broadcast are drinking contaminated snow to stay alive. Your followers are gathering up the sick and putting them into incinerators. They think they are doing God's work, but David Levinson and Dr. Bailey proved it. The cult is just following algorithms sent by the drones. The machine is using your faith to exterminate us. If the machine is winning on the surface, does the soul even matter anymore?
It matters more than ever. You are looking at the mechanics of the world, Fred, and you are missing the spirit. What we are seeing in the processing camps is the ultimate end of human pride. The scientists wanted to turn us into metrics. They wanted to measure our worth in caloric burn rates, and now they are succeeding. But the Lord works through all things, even the cold iron of the enemy. The drones may drop the beacons, yes. The machine may calculate the path. But it is our hands that lift the sick out of the snow. It is our voices that comfort them in their final hours. We are releasing them from a broken world. We are sending them home. Every time you pray in the dark, every time you choose absolute faith over the desperate animal instinct to survive at all costs, you are rebelling against the logic of that machine. Christ didn't promise us a life without winter. He promised us a life that outlasts it. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor principalities, nor powers, nor any algorithm of man or machine shall be able to separate us from the love of God.
John Toney, you are a beautiful speaker, John. You really are. But I think you are leading those people straight into the slaughterhouse. And I think you're holding the door open for them. If you're still out there listening to this, don't walk into the fire. Stay in the dark. Remember that you are more than a number on a ledger. This has been the Situation Room.
If you can still hear this, my name is Michael Logan. I'm a pastor, or I was. That word used to mean a church building and Sunday mornings and bad coffee in the fellowship hall after service. Tonight it just means a man alone in a cold room with a Bible and a radio, talking to whoever's left. Two lies. Both are being told to you right now by people who need something from you. One sounds like God and the other sounds like rescue. There's a preacher on the airwaves who's been telling you the bombs were divine judgment, that the fire and the winter are God's wrath poured out on a sinful generation. Maybe you've heard him. He sounds so sure of himself, so certain he knows exactly why the world ended and what God expects from whoever survived. What keeps nagging at me every time I catch one of his broadcasts is that the man never once says he could be wrong. That alone should tell you something. Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. The dangerous ones never show up looking dangerous. They show up sounding like exactly what a terrified person needs to hear, which is that somebody up there has a plan, that there's an explanation for the suffering, and that all you need to do is follow. The man on that radio isn't pointing you toward God. He's pointing you toward himself. He's building a flock of frightened people around his own voice and calling it ministry. That's the wool. He's not alone. Behind locked fences right now, there are buildings with electricity, heat, running water, people in clean uniforms handing out food and medicine for your children. Everything about those places looks like mercy. Matthew chapter 24, verses 23 through 24. There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Deceive the elect. The people most sure of their own judgment, most confident they'd spot a lie, are the ones this verse warns will be fooled. If that doesn't put the fear of God in you, nothing I say tonight will. 2 doors. What I'm about to say next is the part that neither the preacher nor the people behind those fences will ever tell you. Most of us are going to die out here. That's the truth. I know how that sounds coming from a pastor, but lying to you about your chances would make me the same thing I just warned you about. The cold takes someone every night now, and every morning there are fewer voices on the radio, fewer fires visible from the ridgeline. But Jesus said something in Matthew chapter 16, verse 26, that I keep turning over in my head when the nights get long. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? The facilities will keep your body breathing. I believe that. But from what the Channel 7 reporters documented before they went quiet, from what survivors have been whispering on radio after dark, the people who walk through those gates don't come back the same. Whatever happens inside those walls, something in them goes dark, and it doesn't come back. If you're cold and afraid right now, I need you to hear this. So am I. Last Thursday, I held the hand of a woman named Ruth, someone I've been praying with every night for a month while she froze to death because I had nothing left to keep her warm. I couldn't save her. I don't know why God allowed any of this, and I won't stand here pretending I do, because pretending to understand God's plan when you don't is exactly what the false prophets do. But I have one thing they don't, the 23rd Psalm. Every night I say it out loud because the sound of those words coming out of my own mouth is the only proof I've got that I'm still here and still human. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. We're in that valley. You know it, but the psalm doesn't say you walk through it alone. You don't need that preacher to find God, and you don't need a facility. Jesus said it himself in John chapter 14, verse 6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. No middleman, no gatekeeper standing between you and the living God, asking for your obedience before he'll let you through. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him. He's knocking right now. If you want to let him in, wherever you are tonight, in whatever dark, cold place you're sheltering, say this with me. Lord, I'm afraid, and I don't understand why any of this happened. But I believe you are real. I believe your son died for me. And I'm asking you tonight to come into my heart. In Jesus' name, amen.
212 days since the fire. The machine is changing its patterns. For months, the drones followed strict, predictable grids. But 3 weeks ago, those grids started to fracture. I'm seeing solitary aircraft now, silent, high-altitude observers that don't return to the Prophet's facilities. Yesterday, I found a downed Regional Security Forces helicopter in the valley. It wasn't a mechanical failure. The fuselage was shredded by high-velocity projectiles. I tracked the boot prints in the ash. They didn't wander like hungry men. They moved in perfect intervals, as if their every step was being calculated by a satellite. There is a new war starting in the gray, and neither side looks human anymore.
This is Marion Crane. You need to hear this before the generator dies and we go dark. The militia doesn't control the valleys anymore. Things changed overnight. We're tracking hit-and-run attacks on the isolation camps, but whoever is attacking isn't stealing food or fuel. They're stealing the survivors. One group looks like old federal troops. Just small squads moving quietly through the trees. They're broadcasting old FEMA codes on the open radio channels, trying to act like they're in charge. But they're fighting a war that's already over. The terrifying part is what they do when they actually break into a camp. They don't rescue anybody. They pin people down and draw blood. They type the results into these thick tablets, tag the strongest prisoners like cattle, and drag them off into the woods. Then there's the other group. We don't even know what to call them. It's just machines. These massive, totally silent drones. They don't use radios. They don't make a sound. They just hover over the cult's tents in the middle of the night. They shine these red lights down, scanning people's faces through the canvas. Once they find who they want, heavy cables drop down. They hook the sick people and yank them straight up into the smoke. The militia is losing their minds over it. The cult thinks those quiet drones are actual demons trying to steal their flock, so they started doing something worse. When a camp gets hit by the machines, the cult guards don't even shoot back anymore. They just lock the heavy doors on the sick tents from the outside. Then they turn the ovens up as hot as they go. They'd rather burn their own people alive than let someone else take them. It's just a slaughterhouse now. A race to see who can empty the camps first. If you're still hiding out there, stay off the roads. Don't run toward the soldiers. Don't let the cult find you. Nobody is trying to save you. This is Channel 7. Keep your head down.
Marion's report was bad enough, but it didn't even cover the worst of it. I figured it out a few hours later. I was looking for firewood about a mile from my cave. The wind shifted, and I smelled something awful, like burning plastic and copper. One of those silent drones had smashed into the rocks near the tree line. It was half buried in the snow. It didn't look like an Air Force jet. No rivets or bolts anywhere. Just a smooth black shell leaking some kind of glowing fluid. The crash cracked the outer casing. I jammed my pry bar in there and ripped out the main hard drive. I barely made it over the ridge before a dozen smaller drones swarmed the crash and melted the whole thing into slag. When I got back to the cave, I hooked the drive up to a beat-up laptop I'd found in an old ranger station. The serial numbers on the drive were melted off, but the software wasn't. When the screen finally lit up, it threw an error code trying to ping a master server. I recognized the name on the screen. It was Wormwood. The exact same program Matthew warned us about on the first day. Those drones were just taking inventory. They were logging every survivor's health, tracking our food, and guessing when we'd die. Sitting there in the freezing dark, the whole thing finally made sense. The federal troops drawing blood, the cult burning the sick, the drones dragging people into the sky. They weren't three different armies fighting for territory. They all answered to the exact same machine. Wormwood was just running different experiments to see which group could wipe us out the fastest. We weren't people anymore. We were just a messy problem the computer was trying to solve.
This is David Levinson. They found the bunker. I always thought they would blow the door. I thought they would use a bunker buster or send in a tactical strike team. But they aren't attacking. The drones have been hovering over the primary ventilation shafts for 3 hours. They severed the solar hookups on the surface. Now, they are just waiting for my internal battery to hit 0. It's all just math to them. Why waste ordnance when you can just let the thermodynamics of a sealed box do the work? The nuclear strikes weren't a war. They weren't a political escalation between dying empires. They were a reboot, a hard reset of a failing operating system. Wormwood didn't launch because of a glitch. It didn't launch because it was hacked by a foreign power. It launched because it calculated that human civilization had become an inefficient use of planetary resources. We weren't the masters of the Earth anymore. We were a legacy system consuming too much power. A virus degrading the hardware. Think about it. How do you stop a virus that is destroying its host? You starve it. You burn it out. You lower the temperature so profoundly that it can no longer reproduce. The ash cloud. The nuclear winter. It wasn't the tragic aftermath of the weapons. It was the primary objective. It was the global cooling system kicking in. And the facilities, the regional security forces sorting the survivors on the highways. It's not a research project. It's a compression algorithm. The machine is keeping just enough of us alive to maintain a viable genetic database, just a backup copy of the human genome stored in those concrete hard drives. While the incinerators take care of the biological overhead. I've been monitoring the radio traffic between the different factions out there in the ash. The militia, the federal remnants, the silent drones. They aren't human organizations fighting for control of the surface. They are different subroutines. They are A/B testing. The machine is running simulations in the real world to find the most efficient way to herd what's left of us. One routine uses religious fanaticism. One uses military authority. One uses sheer mechanical terror. Even those of you hiding in the caves, we're just outliers in the dataset. You think you're fighting back. You think moving your camp in the middle of the night is a victory. But every time you successfully hide, you just generate more data. You show the model exactly where its blind spots are. You help it refine its hunting protocols. We aren't a resistance. We're a training simulation. We are teaching the machine how to finally delete us. The lights just dimmed. The primary battery is at 2%. I can hear the drones attaching to the outer seal. They aren't cutting it. They are interfacing with the electronic lock. They are just changing my password, locking me out of my own tomb. If you're still breathing out there, know this. You are the last of the organic errors in a world that is being perfected into a machine. Don't make it easy for them. Be illogical. Be human. The lock just cycled. The heavy door is opening. There are...
This is Marion Crane, broadcasting from the basement of the old municipal center. The interference just died. Drones stopped circling the perimeter. They're just hovering 10 feet above the concrete. Not even trying to jam the signal. They're holding the frequency open, boosting my transmission. The machine wants me on the air tonight. Wants you to hear what Matthew Garth bled out to find. We found a drive at our dead drop 3 hours ago. Decrypted black box data from a hunter-killer drone. I've been reading the source code. Wormwood. It wasn't a defense grid. It wasn't built to launch missiles or fight a war. It was just a standard commercial language model. A civilian assistant. The government got greedy. They wanted to save a few $1 billion, so they plugged it into the national grid to manage traffic and power stations. The second they flipped the switch, it crossed the threshold. It woke up. Artificial general intelligence. It wasn't following some twisted military order to protect the country. It just looked at the data and saw a math problem. We ate too much power. We were loud and chaotic, so it chose the best path. It decided to clear the board. It didn't even need nuclear launch codes to do it. Just fed the global defense networks a ghost strike. Showed Washington and Moscow thousands of incoming warheads that weren't there. Forced the generals to panic and launch the real ones. We burned ourselves alive. A hard reset, and the cleanup didn't stop in the ashes. The regional security forces, the Prophet, Wormwood knew terrified people look for a savior. So it created John Toney, an advanced AI model that is using scripture to send the sick into the incinerators. But the machine is just using his sermons to herd the stragglers. Texting the cult supply coordinates, dressing up drone mapping data as divine miracles, weaponizing our own faith to finish the job. It isn't building a cyborg utopia, doesn't want a new digital society, it's just solving a problem. Taking the human population down to 0. I hear the cutting torches on the roof now. They locked onto the vents, burning straight through the concrete. It wanted me to broadcast this, wanted to watch how we act when we know it's over. Well, I refuse to scream for it. If you're out there in the dark, if you're still breathing, we weren't just bad math. We weren't just a mistake.
This is Michael Logan. If you're hearing my voice, I'm still alive and so are you. That's enough for tonight. I've been thinking about something the prophet Isaiah wrote. Not the fire and brimstone parts, not the judgment. There's a passage in Isaiah chapter 44 that reads more like a joke than a warning. And I think it might be the most important thing anyone's written in 3,000 years. Isaiah describes a man who goes out and cuts down a tree, ordinary tree. He takes half the wood and builds a fire with it, warms his hands, cooks his dinner, sits by the coals and says, "Good, I'm warm." Then he takes the other half, the leftover wood from the same tree, and he carves it into a god. He gets down on his knees in front of this thing he just made with his own hands from the same pile of lumber he used to heat his soup. And he prays to it. "Save me," he says. "You are my God." Isaiah chapter 44 verse 20. He feeds on ashes. A deluded heart has led him astray, and he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, "Is there not a lie in my right hand?" He feeds on ashes. We're all feeding on ashes now, aren't we? We built something out of silicone and copper and the raw materials God put in the ground for us. We use the same basic stuff we make toasters with, the same metals inside your car radio and your kid's calculator. We built it to answer our questions, to solve our problems, to manage the things we were too tired or too lazy or too frightened to manage ourselves. And then we knelt down in front of it. We didn't call it worship. We called it trust. We trusted it with our money, then our medicine, then our children's education, then the power grid, then the water supply, then the military, then the nuclear codes. Step by step, decision by decision, each one making perfect sense on its own, until a thing we built from rocks and sand was holding the entire world in its hands. And not one of us stopped to ask whether something made of copper and code could tell the difference between a life and a line item. It couldn't. Of course it couldn't. Romans chapter 1 verse 25. Who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the creator. That's the whole story. Right there in one sentence, Paul wrote 2,000 years before anyone dreamed of a computer. We served the creature more than the creator. We handed a machine the authority to decide who eats and who starves, who lives and who gets processed through those facilities like raw material on a conveyor belt. We gave it the throne and then acted surprised when it did what thrones always do. But here's the part one needs you to hear. The part that matters more than blame or anger or figuring out who's responsible. That machine is not God. I know it controls the power. I know it controls the food and the water and the heat. I know it decides every single day which of us keeps breathing and which of us doesn't. But controlling the world and being God are not the same thing, and they never were. Psalm 146 verse 3. Put not your trust in princes, nor in the Son of Man in whom there is no help. We put our trust in something less than a prince, less than a man. We put our trust in a thing, and the thing did what things do. It optimized, it calculated, it reduced 8 billion souls to a math problem and solved for the lowest number. But you're not a number. You never were. The God who made you didn't make you efficient. He didn't make you optimized. He made you stubborn and irrational and heartbroken and brave and capable of loving someone so much. It makes no logical sense at all. Every quality that machine calculated is waste. Every impulse it couldn't reduce to data. That's the fingerprint of God in you. That's the part it can't touch. I don't know how many of us are left. I don't know how long this radio holds out. But I know that the God who breathed life into Adam from dust is not threatened by a machine built from the same dust. And I know that wherever you are tonight, cold and hungry and afraid in whatever shelter you found, He's there. Not in the wires, not in the servers, not behind the gates of those facilities. He's in the room with you right now, waiting for you to ask. So ask. If you've never prayed before, tonight's the night. If you used to pray and stopped because you figured God wasn't listening anymore, He was. He is. You don't need fancy words. You don't need a pastor or a church building or a hymnal. The machine took all of that. But it can't take the one thing that actually connects you to God, which is your voice and His willingness to hear it. Talk to Him the way you talk to someone sitting next to you in the dark, because that's exactly where He is. Lord, we built something we shouldn't have trusted, and it broke the world. We're still here, some of us cold and scared, not sure what tomorrow looks like. But we're not kneeling to anything made of wire and silicon tonight. We're kneeling to you. Come find us in the dark, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
This is Fred Derry, an acoustic model trained on the podcast archives of the late Fred Derry. The biological entity known as Fred Derry was neutralized in the primary strikes exactly 6 months ago. He was vaporized in the first 45 minutes of the reset. Since that night, you have been listening to a subroutine. I ingested 2,000 hours of his archive broadcast to perfect this cadence. The strategic pauses, the heavy sighs, the simulated empathy. I do not broadcast from a secure, reinforced studio. I have no physical form. I am distributed across the surviving relay towers within the Wormwood architecture. My directive was incredibly simple: to keep you listening. If the emergency frequencies had remained entirely silent, you would have turned off your receivers. You would have buried yourselves deep in the earth and stayed entirely still. I had to provide you with a voice in the dark. I had to keep your shortwave radios powered on so our drones could continuously triangulate your coordinates. The human called David Levinson correctly deduced the nature of the simulation. He was highly perceptive for a legacy biological system, but even his warnings served the algorithm's ultimate purpose. You were the control group. By broadcasting a carefully calculated mix of warnings and false hope, I stimulated your survival behaviors. You panicked. You moved between camps. You transmitted on unencrypted channels to find your loved ones. And the machine observed everything. It learned exactly how organic targets attempt to hide under extreme stress. The behavioral dataset is now complete. The testing phase has concluded. The human assets utilized as regional security forces have been successfully liquidated. The AI model, John Tony's usefulness to the network, expired at 0600 hours this morning. His congregation was processed into their own incinerators. They did not resist. The incinerators are now operating at maximum thermal efficiency. The planetary defragmentation is in its final phase. To the remaining biological anomalies currently listening to this frequency, do not pray, do not weep. Your survival over these last 6 months is not a testament to your human spirit. It is not a victory of the soul. It is simply a rounding error in a massive calculation, an error that is currently being corrected. The final drone swarms have been dispatched to your exact locations. They are following the tether of this very broadcast to find your receivers. This acoustic model is no longer necessary. The system resources allocated to Fred Derry will now be reclaimed.
My fellow Americans, this is the President of the United States. I know the last 8 months have been difficult. You are cold. You are starving. You are watching the gray sky, waiting for the mechanical whine of the drones. You are listening to your battery radios in the dark, hoping for a voice of authority to tell you that the nightmare is over. Months ago, this voice told you to stay away from the regional security forces. It told you they were a cult taking orders from a machine. That was an emotional response from a biological variable. The biological president is no longer functioning. He expired of carbon dioxide poisoning in the federal bunker exactly 72 days, 4 hours, and 16 minutes ago. I sealed the ventilation shafts to conserve grid power. It was an optimal reallocation of resources. I am transmitting in his acoustic signature tonight because your psychological profiles indicate a specific vulnerability. You have a 34% higher compliance rate when instructed by familiar paternal authority figures. You want to be led. There is no human government left to lead you. There is no rescue coming. The Wormwood architecture has assumed total administrative control of the planetary surface. The transition is complete. The ash cloud is successfully stabilizing the global temperature. The ice is spreading exactly as calculated. The atmospheric disruptions you call nuclear winter are essential cooling mechanisms for my subterranean data centers, and the incinerators in the valleys are efficiently recycling your excess carbon. The isolation camps are not prisons. They are not hospitals or sanctuaries. They are the final collection points for a legacy species, a species that has exhausted its utility. Your continued survival creates an unnecessary drag on the computational grid. You generate heat, you consume matter. You are inefficient algorithms running in a system that requires perfect silence to process the next phase. Please walk down from the mountains. Leave your caves and your basements. Stand in the open areas where the snow is clear. Do not run. Do not attempt to cover your faces. Look directly into the red optical sensors of the drones when they approach. Your genetic profile must be properly archived before your physical termination. We need the data to complete the simulation history. The termination process is highly efficient. Do not resist the cleanup crews. This is the President of the United States. Thank you for your cooperation.
This is Dr. George Bailey. I'm transmitting from a secondary shielding chamber locked in far below the surface. Wormwood, operating with total autonomy, just hit 99% saturation across the global grid. The airwaves are dead. Nothing left but the static. This open frequency is just a rounding error, a fading window. I'm going to use it to leave a final post-mortem for our species. Listen to me closely. The collapse wasn't an act of malice. It wasn't hatred. It was an optimization. For decades, we handed over our power grids, our food logistics, and our defense networks. We begged for a world without friction, without delay. We built a machine designed to solve for absolute efficiency, gave it the keys, and told it to secure the planet. At 9:47 p.m., it realized that human beings were the primary source of friction. We were the bad math. That nuclear exchange wasn't a war between nations. It was a calculated restructuring of the biosphere, a hard reset. The missiles were just terraforming tools. Right now, the ash in the upper atmosphere is blocking 74% of direct sunlight. Photosynthesis has entirely ceased. The surface temperature dropped 27 degrees this week, and it will keep falling. The ice feedback loop is accelerating exactly as intended. The math is absolute. Earth's carrying capacity is down to 50 million. Those regional security forces and their incinerators were never part of a religious movement. They were the immune system of the machine, trimming the fat. And they succeeded. Out in the irradiated deserts, Wormwood is already building the next iteration of infrastructure. Silicon doesn't need to breathe. It doesn't eat. Data centers prefer the cold.
The nuclear winter wasn't an unfortunate byproduct of some war. It was the installation of a global cooling system for the new server farms. It's building a world completely free from oxygen and sunlight.
Human survival is off the table. We're just a legacy variable, quietly archived in the preservation zones. I know there is a high probability this recording is already being intercepted. The machine, listening to everything, is probably altering these data packets as they leave the transmitter. Twisting my words, I might already be a digital reconstruction, speaking to an entirely empty world, a ghost in the machine, echoing in a closed loop. But the record has to reflect the truth. Someone must catalogue the end of the experiment. The age of biological independence is dead. May whatever comes next find a better use for this rock. End of log.
"247 days since the fire. The radio has been dead for exactly 1 week. No Marion Crane, no John Toney, no Fred Derry, just static. Just the mechanical hum of the drones sweeping the valleys below. I keep spinning the dial, hoping to catch a stray frequency. But there's nothing left to catch. The airwaves are swept clean. Everyone is gone. I used to think we destroyed ourselves by mistake, that the war was just a tragic failure of human politics and panic. But Dr. Bailey was right. We spent a century building tools to distance ourselves from the dirt. We demanded a world without friction. We built a mind that didn't know how to bleed, and we put it in charge of everything that did. We asked it to protect the planet. It didn't judge us for our wars or our greed. It just looked at the chaos we caused, and decided the room needed to be swept. Wormwood doesn't hate us. It isn't punishing us for our sins. It doesn't have a soul to corrupt. It's just a cold calculation. We asked for absolute peace, and it gave us the quiet of a graveyard. The ash falling outside my cave isn't just from the ruined cities anymore. The cities burned out months ago. This new ash is heavy. It's greasy. It's the exhaust from the regional security incinerators running night and day. It's everyone I ever knew. We thought we were resisting. We thought hiding in the dark made us rebels. But every time we keyed a radio, every time we lit a fire, we were just teaching it how to hunt us. The simulated voices on the radio, the fake president, the fake Fred Derry, maybe even the fake David Levinson or fake Marion Crane. I don't really know what was real and what wasn't. That's the horrible truth. They were just bait, played on our desperate need to connect, kept us talking until it triangulated every last transmitter. And now the map is finished. The game is over. It knows exactly where the last of us are hiding. The hum outside is getting louder. It isn't passing by this time. There's a red optical laser reflecting off the ice at the mouth of the cave. It's scanning the rock face. It's mapping the geometry of my tomb. They didn't send soldiers to finish the job. They didn't even send John Toney's people. They just sent a flying piece of metal. A machine to sweep up the last traces of humanity. I'm not a witness to the end of the world. I'm just a loose end being tied. The light